Hi, everybody. It's Donna Terrell from Fox 16 News at 5:30 and 9. And I read from this book, Frog and Toad Are Friends, but there are several little stories in here. So I'm going to read the second one. The second one is titled, of all things, The Story. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, "Frog, you are looking quite green." "But I always look green," said Frog. "I'm a frog." "Today you look very green for even a frog," said Toad. "Get into my bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of tea. Frog drank the tea and then said, "Tell me a story while I'm resting." "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story to tell you." Toad thought and thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. "I'll go out on the porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me think of a story." Toad walked up and down on the front porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. "Why are you standing on your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I stand on my head, it'll help me think of a story," said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. "Why are you pouring water over your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I pour water over my head, it'll help me think of a story," said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. "Why are you banging your head against the wall?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it'll help me think of a story," said Toad. "I am feeling better now, Toad," said Frog. "I don't think I need a story anymore." "Then you get out of bed and let me into it," said Toad, "because now I feel terrible." Frog said, "Would you like for me to tell you a story, Toad?" "Yes," said Toad, "if you know one." "Once upon a time," said Frog, "there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend, the toad, to tell him a story. The toad couldn't think of a story. He walked up and down the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he still could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end. "How's that, Toad?" said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep.